Prismo shareholders. Welcome to Prismo in the News. It's been a while. It's been too long since we've done one of those, but today we want to cover a couple of topics. The last 2 news releases. One, the appointment of Gord Alcorn as our president. And we also want to talk about today's news, the option agreement for the old historic Silver King mine and Ripsey. But I'll make a few comments at the outset. Today's announcement on optioning 2 very interesting projects in Arizona is not a change of direction for Prismo Metals. We remain committed to advancing our Hot Breccia copper project, which is just down the road from where we're going to be with Ripsey and Silver King. And as we indicated in some recent news releases, we have entered into some discussions with some of the majors. Some majors have been on site. Some of them are going to return on site. Some new ones have expressed an interest in visiting the project. So we remain fully committed to our 5,000 meters of drilling at Hot Breccia. Regarding Palos Verdes, which is our silver project in Mexico, we did a small drill program last summer, fall. And what's changed since then is the announcement last year by our strategic partner, Vizsla Silver, of their intent to explore other parts of the Panuco district where they have a significant discovery. And that was a bit of a change. They had stopped doing exploration and focused on their initial discovery. They said that there were 4 areas of priority exploration for them, including Palos Verdes, Prismo's property, and they surround us on 3 sides. So they started drilling 1 new area. They made another discovery. Great for them. We love our partners at Vizsla. And so there are 3 other areas that remain priorities for exploration for them, and one of them is us. So we will wait for them to progress towards the northeast of the district. We remain very excited about our prospects, and we look forward to advancing that project again in the not too distant future. So with that, I'd like to introduce Gord. Gord's the new president. Steve Robertson, who was the president the last 15 months, remains as an advisor. People would remember that he came in as an advisor when we optioned Hot Breccia, and then he became the president in May of last year. And he remained very much involved, but he's got some other projects that he's working on, and in fact, back to Imperial Metals, where he started his career. So welcome, Gord. I've known Gord for 30-odd years, a veteran in our industry, and maybe say a few words, Gord, as to why you chose to join us, and what's your vision for Prismo moving forward.
Sure, Alain. Thanks very much. Yes, as far as my background goes, as Alain says, we've known each other for quite a period of time. That harkens back actually to my days with the stock exchange, the predecessor to the TSXV here in Calgary. I come from a capital markets background originally. I moved to the stock exchange as part of a move across the country, actually. But the work at the exchange, I started market surveillance. I moved on to trading investigations. The work at the exchange really sort of ignited my interest in the junior capital markets and the companies, that you find therein. So my work at the exchange again extended on into the trading investigations, the IDA, the regulatory side of the business. I spent some time there, and then actually I moved into the marketing advisory side for the junior public markets, and that's been a fascinating space. It's one that I've stayed with since that time in various capacities. I guess most recently Well, I guess I should mention it's brought me to advisory work with a number of mining companies, junior mining companies in the Yukon, in Peru, and most recently in Chile, where I was actually a an officer of two of the companies that had properties down there. So I was talking to Alain not too long ago, getting caught up. Prismo's always been a story that I've followed actually and been pretty impressed with what the company's managed to achieve in its time. And through our discussion, it came up that that this position would be coming available. So that's basically how that came to be.
And what do you envisage for the company? So we, as I mentioned at the outset, we started the day today with two projects. Now we've got four. You want to talk a little bit? What do you have in mind?
Sure. Well, it's been a pleasure to be involved in the process of taking on the additional two projects in terms of both getting a greater understanding of the direction the company's taking, the projects themselves, what we're trying to achieve here. Definitely the two projects already in place with the Hot Breccia and the Palos Verdes, very, very intriguing projects at different stages of development. But I think the company itself is really on the precipice of a breakout here on all fronts. So I'm excited and consider myself pretty fortunate to be in this position at this time. I can see lots of good things happening in a short period of time, and I believe that's really why investors get involved and participate in the junior markets in general.
That's great. Thank you. Craig, we're going to go to you. Maybe before I ask my first question for you, Craig, Silver King Ripsey, which we announced today, we optioned to earn 100% of each projects. You've known these projects for a while, if I'm not mistaken. At the time that we were looking at Hot Breccia in early 2023, those projects were also on the table. I know you had visited these projects, and we decided to focus on Hot Breccia, which I think was the right move, remains the right move. And then we got to the point, as I mentioned, that we're prioritizing partnering with a major for Hot Breccia. We're expecting our partner in Mexico to get to Palos Verdes and at some point. And so we were looking for something to put the exploration team back in the field and generating news and advancing projects. And luckily for us, these two projects were still available. Back in April, I was in Arizona with you, Craig, and so was Steve Robertson. We all visited Silver King and Ripsey. It was not your first visit; it was mine. And Steve and I came away very impressed with what we saw and understood more clearly what your enthusiasm for these two projects. So maybe let's start and talk a little bit about the history of Silver King. Let's focus on Silver King, which I think is has a lot of short-term potential, and it's certainly something that's quite historic in terms of production, silver production. We've read some old reports that talk about antimony being present. So maybe give a little bit of the history of that project, and then after that we can get into why you like it and what you intend to do to advance that project.
Yes, both Silver King and Ripsey I visited originally a few years ago. I've been intrigued by those. We really didn't have an opportunity to get involved until recently. We've been working on it for a little while, as you said. Silver King, well, people who know the history of Arizona mining history, it's a famous mine. It was one of the most important ones in the late 1800s. It was discovered in 1875. Very high grade silver ore was discovered at the surface. There's numerous of these stories for discoveries in high grade deposits, but this one was very high grade. It was put into production. Average grades were 60 ounces per ton in the first years of production. It's produced about 6 million tons of 6 million ounces of silver from a pretty small tonnage. The deposit is a steeply dipping pipe-like form, and it's interesting. It was discovered, as I said, at the surface, worked at the surface in an open pit, and then they put a shaft down on it. And after working on that shaft, as it got deeper, they found better ore than what was at the upper levels in terms of, I don't think it was in terms of grade, it was in terms of their ability of processing it. So this thing was mined to about 300 meters depth, mainly right at the surface, maybe to 30, 40 meters at the surface, and then over, let's say 100 meters down to about 300 meters. It was mined extensively for very high grade mineralization. We think it's produced about 150,000 tons with 30 ounces per ton, more or less, average grade. And those numbers aren't exact, but very high grade mineralization. So it's a fabulous opportunity to get in there. And I think one of the main points, the last period of production was in the 1920s. So nothing's been there, significant has been done there since probably 1928. And then there's no real exploration been done on the project. It was all just go in, get right on the high grade and mine it. So there's been no exploration done there. Both the Silver King and Ripsey are in porphyry copper districts. They're both high grade precious metals deposits, but they also have significant copper and lead zinc deposits associated with them. And Silver King, as you said, has antimony in it. And I think some of the higher antimony grades were in that upper part of the deposit that was not mined in the past, probably because it was not amenable to the process they had available to them for their beneficiation processes. So we think there may be significant antimony potential also in the upper levels of the deposit.
Well, that's great. And you mentioned copper, so let's talk a little bit about copper. I have to bring up Resolution Copper. Resolution Copper is a joint venture between Rio Tinto and BHP. They describe it as the largest unmined copper deposit in the world, 1.5 billion tons at 1.5%, I think, a little higher than that, maybe 1.57. And it's the Silver King property is like 3K from the main shaft at Resolution. What's very important to know, there are two things. One is it looks like under the Trump administration, Resolution will be getting the final go-ahead sometime in August, I believe, and at the end of August. There's been press releases by the administration that they favor the project going forward. The other thing I'd like to mention, and you might want to comment on what I'm going to say from a geological standpoint, but I like to say that Silver King is like the hole in a donut, the donut being the property that's owned by Resolution Copper. So we're surrounded by Resolution Copper, and Silver King somehow was left there ready to be picked up. I did talk to the owner when we were on property. He did get some offers in the past from the joint venture, but decided to hold on to this. So what does it mean geologically, Craig, that this project is so close to Resolution Copper? And, what would you say about that proximity?
Well, most of these porphyry districts and porphyry deposits are spatially associated with base metal deposits, sort of lead, zinc, silver, and also commonly gold deposits. So I think there's no, it's not for sure right now with their level of knowledge, but it's very likely that the mineralization at Silver King has a relationship to a porphyry deposit, and it could be Resolution, it could be another one in the vicinity of the Silver King mine. So, and that's one of the things I think is very interesting and important. We've got a high grade silver producer, historical producer, but it's also got significant copper values and it's hosted by what's called a quartz diorite porphyry, which in this region of Arizona is basically the most common porphyry host rock for the copper mineralization. So potentially, again, there's been no real exploration for anything other than the very high grade silver in this pipe. So we think there's potential for copper mineralization in this porphyry, either at depth or lateral to the pipe. And that's one thing we're planning on doing, not only exploring the high grade silver in the pipe. And, again, with respect to the silver, there's a couple of good targets there. One is this potential unmined portion of the deposit at a shallow level. And also we think there's significant broken ore that was left in the mine. This mine was mined by what they called the square set method. The pipe-like feature was 20 to 40 meters in diameter, and they basically took all the volume out of that and left a square set of timbers supporting the mine. And the lower grade ore, let's say 5 ounces, 7 ounces per ton, maybe 10 ounces per ton, was left in place because it was never removed from the mine. They just took the highest grade. And again, the average was probably 30 ounces per ton over the life of the mine. So we think there's significant mineralized rock still left in these open areas that were backfilled. And that's two.
Yes, and if I may, Craig, so when we were doing the visit, so the gentleman who owns it with his family was with us. There's actually a book that was written about the mine. People can look it up. I think it's called "When Silver Was King," and it talks about the history and about the family that owns it now. But the gentleman in question was telling us this exact point, and he did tell us how much he felt. He had been in the mine in the late 90s, I believe, with his family, and did a little bit of work in there. And he did say that he felt there was quite a bit of material that was left there. But let's talk about specifically what you intend to do, Craig, in terms of mapping and initial drilling. We do know that we've been, we haven't had results to announce, activities to announce since last fall, and we want to change that in a meaningful way. So what are some of the things you want to be doing to advance the project in the near term, Craig?
Well, it's another really good feature about these two projects that they're very easily accessible. So they're road accessible. They've had, you can drive right to the property. So our first goal, and again, as I said, they haven't really had much exploration done over the life of the mine. It was all based on high grade production. So the first thing we want to do on both areas is to get on the surface, map and sample them, figure out what's there other than what was mined in the past, and in the case of Ripsey, further define what that is. Again, there's almost been nothing done other than mining high grade mineralization. So, and at Silver King, we want to look at all the other small occurrences around it, which have had production in the past, catalog those, mine those, look at the structure, look at the potential for lower grade mineralization around this high grade core. So we think there could be potential for, a low grade open pittable silver deposit. We don't know. So we want to do all the work to understand what those are. And then at Silver King, we plan to do pretty quickly a 1,000-meter drill program. And the idea there would be test the high grade silver at shallow levels, determine what's still there in terms of silver grade and what's around the high grade that's been mined in the past. And also look at some of this potential copper mineralization surrounding the silver mineralization. So we're going to be working over basically the rest of the year defining that and testing with a drill program at Silver King. We can get Ripsey also pretty much drill ready this year. Not clear right now, though we'll drill it this year, but it's they're both discrete targets, easily accessible. So we'll be working very hard on those. And we also take advantage of our knowledge of the area. We've been working in, nearby for a few months. So we have some infrastructure there and we know the people there. So this will be a good opportunity to leapfrog the work we've already done in the area.
That's a great point. So in terms of location, Silver King is just outside the town of Superior. If you look at a map, Superior is 50 minutes due east of Phoenix International Airport, highway the whole way. And then you go south towards Hot Breccia, and along the way to Hot Breccia, a little bit to the west of that main road is Ripsey. So yeah, I mean, it's I believe Hot Breccia is about 40 kilometers from Superior, maybe a little bit more, but I mean, it's a very short drive. It's a beautiful drive, and so in terms of location, yeah, you're right to point that out. Anything I missed on the exploration front, Craig or Gord?
Not in my end, it's pretty discrete targets for the first pass of exploration and also drilling at Silver King. And I wanted to point out, you mentioned the family that was there. Uh, they opened up the main shaft historically there. They rehabilitated it and opened the mine up to the first two levels, which are the 114-foot and 250-foot levels. So they have a pump in there. We can dewater that and get access to the workings relatively easily, low cost and safely. Everything was put in there with modern safety methods. So that's another thing we have an option available is to gain access to the upper levels of the mine and see what they actually were mining, look at the mineralization, get an idea what might be left there.
Yeah, I bet you're keen to go down there and do some underground exploration, right?
Yeah, very exciting opportunity.
Gord, any final comments before we wrap it up?
No, I guess again, just on the Silver King and Ripsey, again, that proximity and that Arizona copper belt, it's been covered in the previous videos, and obviously if you look at our materials on the mapping, the number of past producing mines and projects in the area that we're in is it's amazing. It's so that these are two more that could possibly fit into that category at some point. So it's great to have numerous projects in this area.
Agreed. So we'll wrap it up. So final summary here. We're not moving away from Hot Breccia. It remains, as a recent press release, Steve said he thinks it's still the most compelling copper exploration project he's been associated with. I know you feel the same, Craig. Palos Verdes, very much excited about seeing Vizsla move up across the Panuco district towards where we are. And one thing we didn't talk about, I'll just mention, you can look in the press release, the terms of the option agreement for Ripsey and Silver King are quite attractive in the sense that the cash obligations are very, very low. People will be surprised when they read $10,000 in cash payments per year. It's not per month, it's not per week, it's per year. And so which means that the money was going to go into the ground. And we look forward to having exploration updates on a regular basis, and thank everybody for their support, especially over the last 6 months where we haven't had much activity and our stock's been depressed, but we have a good plan and we'll turn things around. Thank you very much.